Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of We Watch Shudder. My name is Michelle, and who's here with me?
Heyo, it's JD.
Heyo, it's JD. It's always JD.
Every single time without fail, now something like 180 times in a row.
That's so many times.
It's a hell of a record.
That is a fucking hell of a record. I don't have perfect attendance in anything else like that.
No,
Jeez
absolutely not.
Louise.
Not even like jobs.
God, no. No, like day two, I'm like, oh, I have a headache. I have to call in. I'm
gotta
sorry.
I'm gonna go home. I'll be back next week.
Yeah, and then you just never show up. You ghost them. That's professional tips with Michelle. Hello, welcome
No,
to
what you do? What you do is the day you sign your job offer, or the day after you sign your job offer, you call them back and tell them you got COVID, so you got to stay home for a couple of weeks.
Professional
Anyway.
life hack with We Watch Shudder. We watch Shudder and we watch our bank account dwindle because we can't hold a job.
Oh, wait. Well, one of us.
Oh yeah, I guess to you that might seem like a personal attack, but it's just
Oh God, it's not. No, that's not
happenstance.
that's not an attack. That's just a reporting of the facts, ladies and gentlemen.
Important of the facts here. At
Now,
We Watch
JD
Shudder.
actually just started a new job, and I'm pretty excited about it. I'm not gonna bother you people with the details, but I'm in a good mood. We're having a good
I'm
time
excited.
tonight, right?
Both of us have good stuff going on career-wise, and that career
Yeah.
is not We Watch Shudder. We are losing money,
Oh yeah.
actively losing money on
Yeah,
this
we
podcast,
just
but we do it out of love.
We pay for everything out of pocket to the tune of, oh gosh, upwards of tens of dollars
don't-
a month.
I was gonna say, don't make me figure out how much money.
No,
I've sent our fans just random items sometimes because I'm
Oh.
like, you posted on our Facebook a lot last month. Do you want a thing? Shout
You're
out John
awesome.
Humphreys.
Okay.
Well,
So yeah, what are we talking about? We're talking about Suitable Flesh. Is
Suitable
the
Flesh.
Shudder original that we're talking about. Directed by Joe Lynch, written by Dennis Powley, who of course some of you will remember as the fellow who also wrote the Stuart Gordon classics Reanimator and From Beyond. This actually was originally released on like video on demand, like pay streaming back at the end of October. And I was super excited about it, so I watched it right away at that time. I'm pretty sure, if memory serves, Michelle, this was your first time seeing this movie finally, right?
yes,
So,
it was.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun discussion here. I did watch it again, obviously, to refresh my brain on everything. And, yeah, I got a lot of thoughts on
I know.
Suitable
I'm
Flesh.
excited to hear them.
I'm excited to hear yours too. Do you want to? Did
Okay.
we look at the description on Shudder and IMDb and
Yeah.
Wiki to see which one is worth using?
I happen to have the IMDb page up, and I think it matches Shudder from what I remember. It's very short. I think it's good enough.
Yeah, that's pretty
it's
good.
Kind of strange for what we
They
know.
are different,
from the
but
movie.
either one of them is worth doing. Hey, I got an idea. How about you read the IMDb one, and then I'll read the Shudder one, and everybody will
Ooh.
get a whole lot of a good explanation from two different angles.
Wow, let's do it. The IMDb one says, psychiatrist becomes obsessed with one of her young patients who she later discovers is linked to an ancient curse. Suitable Flesh.
Suitable Flesh. And this is the quick summary from the Shudder website where you can watch this movie. Psychiatrist Elizabeth Derby becomes obsessed with helping a young patient suffering extreme personality disorder. Not a spoiler, it's the setup. But it leads her into occult danger as she tries to escape a horrific fate. Suitable Flesh.
Suitable Flesh.
That's
I
what we're
actually
talking
prefer
about
that
today.
description. That's a much better one. We should have gone with that
Foodable Flesh.
one. Well, okay. Have
So
a good day,
Michelle, you
everybody.
wanna?
Goodbye.
Yeah, that's what we do on this show. We tell you that we watched a movie, we read its brief description, and then we go. The
We give you
fuck
no
to
thoughts.
Bed.
We bring our thoughts offline. We do want to hear each other's thoughts, but you can't hear them
Michelle,
with us.
you want to hear my thoughts? This is completely out of left
Yes.
field, and it's just a total tangent, and it has nothing to do with this movie at all. But it has everything to do with this podcast. You're wearing a T-shirt right now that has Chewbacca and Yoda on it. and also some other Star Wars faces, but
Yep.
Chewbacca and Yoda are at the top.
Yep.
But the way your camera is cutting off, I keep like it comes in far enough. Not now, but when it's closer,
Yeah.
there's a point there where for a while I can only see the top of Chewbacca's head, and
Yeah.
every time I think it's Michael Myers.
Yep. Nope. I see it now.
Chewbacca Myers. I'm just like,
I can't
why
do
are
the
Yoda
Chewbacca
and
sound,
Michael
but
Myers on the same shirt? That's so weird. That's like
oh
some
fuck.
strange like Redbubble bootleg or something. You get
I
that one
know.
off
Why are you
Temu.
playing the Cat in the Hat? This is such a weird role for you.
So strange.
Mike Myers.
So
Mike
strange.
Myers.
Anyway,
Chewbacca Mike.
Michelle, Suitable Flesh. This
Yeah.
being your first time seeing it, spoiler-free thoughts, please.
Okay. I always like to go into things blind. So I knew very little about this despite you seeing it before. What I knew was that it had gotten a lot of buzz when it initially came out, and then it just kind of dropped off as something I heard. And I had heard like a lot of people say it was good. I had not heard many people saying it was overwhelmingly fantastic. So I had like this idea in my head that like, oh, this is a decent movie. And I remember you were super hyped, and then you watched it almost immediately when it was available for streaming, and that you did
Day it
not
dropped. Yeah,
love it.
absolutely.
Yep,
Yeah,
you were
and
so
it
excited.
actually, if you go back and listen to our We Watch Stuff October 2023 episode that came out in early November, we did discuss it just a little bit and my initial reactions to it. If you guys want to go
Mhm.
back and check that out, plug.
Yes. And after watching a little bit of this, I do have thoughts about what your previous thoughts were, and I do have thoughts about how they could be comparable to a second watch. And I have thoughts about that we'll get into because I don't even know how you
Ooh.
felt the second time. But
Michelle's got thoughts about thoughts.
I have
That's
thoughts about thoughts.
she has meta thought.
Yeah, so I didn't know anything. I had heard the word Lovecraft thrown around in regards to this movie, but that's it. I didn't even look up who was involved in this movie except for Heather Graham. So I turned it on today, especially after I found out I was coming to Shudder eventually. I shut everything off. I was like, I'm gonna wait for the show and just watch this movie as is. So knowing nothing about this, hitting play and watching it, it felt so weird for a while. Um, I I could not decide what was going on, and I was so thrown off, and I was like, what the fuck is this music? What is Heather Graham's acting? This feels so I was so uncomfortable in a way that I didn't know if I was supposed to feel. But then some shit kicks off and I went, "Oh, I get it. I'm on board." Once this movie tells you what it's supposed to be and you're not just floundering trying to figure out if your laughter is intentional or if it's supposed to be just wacky at times, then it becomes pretty enjoyable. Didn't love the beginning because it doesn't establish it as well as I would have liked. Once I discovered that it was a high quality homage to low quality movies, I enjoyed it. Didn't like the ending. That's typical in a horror movie. I'm going to go with a 3.75.
You didn't like the ending of this. That's interesting because my reaction to Suitable Flesh is the very best part of this movie is the last 20 minutes. The most
I'm talking the last like
interesting.
couple minutes.
Okay, no,
I like the
I
last
like
20.
I like the entire finish. All basically from
Okay.
a specific point I'll mention in the spoilers section, all the way to the end of the movie, is fantastic. But like they talk about how this is supposed to be an homage to Stuart Gordon's earlier films, right? Because Dennis Powley wrote those, and it's done in tribute to those, and people are constantly referencing Reanimator and From Beyond. And I feel like the last 20 minutes definitely reminded me very much of Stuart Gordon movies, Reanimator and From Beyond. The last 20 and like the first 5 or whatever, that whole part. But everything in between there, just the tone of it, frankly, it felt like like an early 90s late night cable TV, like softcore Skinamax movie with some weird Lovecrafty vibes. And like I guess that may be exactly what they were trying to do. I'm not certain. What I am certain of is that what I see people constantly saying they did, I didn't get that vibe from it at all. There again was a lot about this that I did like, but overall, it didn't really work for me. This one gets 2 out of 5.
Okay.
2 skulls. Also, Michelle, I'm very disappointed that you didn't know anybody but Heather Graham was in this movie. There's also Barbara Crampton, and you should know everything Barbara Crampton does.
She's not on the poster, so I didn't know she was
Yes,
in
she
there.
is. I'm looking right at it, Michelle. She's right there in
Okay.
the middle, right underneath Heather Graham's
When
head.
I look at that and I glance long enough to go, suitable flesh. I don't want to know anything about this movie. And I look away. I do not register that the woman in the bottom portion is anybody aside from Heather Graham holding a knife. That's all I
It,
recognize.
it,
Otherwise, if I studied this poster, it would say Reanimator and From Beyond. I didn't want to know that.
see that?
I wanted minimal info.
She's right there in the middle, looking like Reese Witherspoon's mom.
Yep. She absolutely
Anyway,
does.
that's a spoiler-free thing. You didn't even consider the Reese Witherspoon's mom thing until I pointed it out. Now you're never going to be able to not see it.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Reese Witherspoon's mom. I was gonna say she likes to fuck, but I don't think she fucked in this movie. She's one of the few who.
Spoilers. Anyway, guys,
You
yeah.
said Skinamax.
So 3.75 from. Yeah, I said people fuck, but I didn't say who fucks. So I guess
Everybody
maybe
except
mild to
Reese
moderate
Witherspoon's mom.
spoilers. We're gonna get into spoiler-heavy deep dive discussion here. So if you do want to see this one before we spoil a bunch of stuff, make sure you pause and then come back. And yeah, anything from here on out that's spoiled for you is your fault. Michelle.
Yeah.
I honestly have been real excited about this. This is weird because we put this podcast together to talk about cool horror movies and sometimes horror movies that we feel weren't so cool, and just a love of horror movies. But I gotta tell you, some days the only reason I find the motivation to continue this this bizarreness is because I know I'm gonna get to listen to Michelle do a summary of the plot in detail, just random off the top of her head, and it's gonna be freaking awesome. So please, Michelle, if you would.
I'm so scared when you hype me up like that because, for the record, everybody, if you're not
That's the whole
familiar-
reason I do it, because I'm trying to throw you off your game.
I
Because
know,
I'm an
I'm already
asshole.
throwing off my game. It was a thing I did, and then you started asking me to sum up plots on the spot, and I always forget that I'm supposed to do this, so I don't prepare.
That's
So
why
anyway-
it's so good. Because you don't
But
prepare.
then you hype it up. But then you hype it up, and they're gonna be like, "Oh man, let's hear what she wrote in very specific detail and curate it to make."
No, she didn't
funny.
write any
No,
of
this
this.
is just-
This
is-
she just goes.
I'm just gonna tell you what I remember
I've
from
seen
a
it
couple
happen,
hours
and
ago.
I've seen it happen enough times just in person. You can take my word for it or not. But anyway, go ahead, Michelle.
Okay, suitable flesh. I don't remember exactly how this movie starts, but Heather Graham's there. She's a psychiatrist, and guess what? Felicity Shagwell, she shags well. She has sex with her husband. I remember that from the beginning. And then she has a guy who shows up, and he has schizoaffective disorder or something along those lines, and he transforms into a handsome, confident man. And she's like, wow, clearly that guy's mentally not well because he suddenly has the confidence of a 40-year-old business owner. So I should probably become obsessed with him. And so when she's having sex with her husband, she's thinking about this other guy who he looked very young, and that made me uncomfortable. Like, he's like your son's age. Like, I'm okay with an age gap, but he's like baby face. I was like, why would you immediately be attracted to this man? But I guess, like, confidence can sell you on anything. That's a tip, you guys. If you are going into your psychiatrist's office and you're like, oh my God, my dad, he's trying to kill me by taking over my body. She's going to be like, I'm not into this unless you're paying me for an hour a week to listen to your problems. And then if you're like, haha, bitch, I'm fine now. She's like, oh my God, I need you immediately. That is a life dating tip from Michelle at We Watch Shudder. So yeah, so she's like, I gotta help this guy because he seems kind of weird. And then she goes to his house and she meets his dad, and his dad's also kind of weird. And then his dad's dead at some point, and then she has sex with him in front of the dad's corpse. And then all of a sudden she's all crickety crackety, and now she is in the boy's body, and the boy is in her body in more ways than one. And then she switches back, and the dad dies, and now this or yes, dad dies. Yes, it's Asa remaining. Okay, I got confused. There's so much body swapping. And then he tries to take over her body a couple more times, and that's when the movie gets really good because seeing Heather Graham play a man discovering what a clitoris is from the woman's perspective is really, really great. And so that happens a couple times, and then she's like, I can't let this guy take over my body no matter how good his dick is. And then she tries to kill him, and then they swap bodies, and now she's in an asylum, and she's the one who's almost dead, and now he's in her body, and then she's still alive for some reason, and then her friend's a psychiatrist, and now she's there, and then they're swapping bodies a whole bunch more, and then I don't fucking know. It made sense at the time, but trying to recap it is like I could tell you what's happening, but as I'm telling you about it, I'm getting bored. So I just don't care. Here's what happens at the end. The dad is dead. The husband is a widow. Heather Graham is also dead. No, yes, Heather
Nope.
Graham is dead. Her best friend psychiatrist is alive, but a man inside. And no, we are not going to make transgender jokes here. I did have some feelings when the dude said that maybe he was a woman all along because, like, come on, if anybody's given the option to have a clitoris, you're gonna do it. And so and so then like everybody's dead except the psychiatrist friend who is Barbara, and then now she's got the demon in her. I don't fucking know. It was fun to watch at the time, but just explaining it, I feel like when I'm recapping my day and it's something I was really excited about, I'm like, yeah, then I went to the store and bananas were on sale, so then I bought 7 bananas, and then I'm trying to tell you about my grocery store trip, and as I'm telling you, I'm so committed to the story, but I realized halfway through it was a mistake to ever start telling you about it. Suitable Flesh 2023, an hour and 40 minutes.
Yeah,
I
that more
bored
or less
myself
covers
trying to
it.
explain it.
It's look. Frankly, I feel like the way that rolled through kind of very accurately reflects exactly the weird cadence of this movie. Heather Graham, by the way, 31 years older than Judah Lewis, who played Asa. Judah Lewis is 22 years old at the time this movie was released. Do you know where else you might know Judah Lewis from, Michelle? I didn't know this until just now when I looked him up.
Well, I do have to quickly say that I'm okay with an age gap, but somebody who is 31 years older than a 22-year-old, you're not going to have anything in common with them. And I think that's why it makes me so uncomfortable.
Well,
I'm
no,
in
and
my
it
30s
does.
and I don't want to hang out with somebody in their early 20s, let alone
Yeah,
have a sexual relationship with them. It makes me uncomfortable. Like, you guys, if it's just for the dick, go for it. You're adults. Do what you want. But, like,
and also
ugh,
just to be clear, for 53 years old, Heather Graham looks fucking fantastic. But no, I was like when I
she's my
discovered
mom's
this.
age, and that is very funny to me.
Well, I mean, Barbara Crampton is, I think, 61, which is just a few years younger than my mom, and well, there's a big difference there too. I love my mama, but anyway, she's been through some rough days, and she's quite aged. Anyway, no, this blew me away because I didn't realize it until just now. This guy Judah Lewis, he played the main character Kid Cole in The Babysitter and The Babysitter Killer Queen
Yes,
on
we've seen him
Netflix.
even younger.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I was just like,
I
wow,
think
this is a
that's why I have
completely
him in my
different
head
role
of
for
like,
him.
oh, you are very, very
Yeah,
young.
he's a good. Anyway,
Yeah.
so
No
yeah,
issues if you. I have a very special close person in my life who is probably that same age difference, but they are both people much further along in life. You guys are not 22 and 50. That would make me uncomfortable.
Ugh.
Unless it's for the
So,
dick, then go for it. Physical pleasures. Give
but
in. It's fine.
no, so yeah, the movie, by the way, you couldn't remember how it starts, but it opens with Heather Graham's character, Elizabeth Darby, was that her name? I
Felicity
believe.
Shagwell.
I'm sorry. Say again.
Felicity Shagwell.
No. Oh. No,
Austin
it's Doc.
Powers. It's the perfect like reference to her past work because if there's anything Felicity Shagwell does, it's she shags well. And every time I see Heather Graham, all I can see is Austin Powers and From Hell. So watching this is such a weird. I'm like, oh, just more sex stuff, huh, Heather?
Yeah, that's
No
but
hate at all.
so
You do you, girl.
yeah, so it starts with the coroner and
Right.
Dr. Daniela
I
Upton
knew this.
looking at a cool shot actually that you're from inside a body bag and it zips open in front of you and they say some random things. And then Dr. Elizabeth Derby, aka Heather Graham, is in like a padded room in a mental hospital, and Dr. Daniela Upton is a friend of hers, and she goes to talk to her. And then the bulk of this movie is like a flashback of the one, like the Heather Graham telling Barbara Crampton what was going on. And that whole chunk of this movie, like I said it in the spoiler free section because it's true. Like this, like people keep saying, like I've even seen other reviews where people are like, oh, this felt so much like Reanimator, or this felt so much like From Beyond. This feels to me, I'm just being honest. This felt like H.P. Lovecraft's Red Shoe Diaries, right? Like this was a Skinamax sci-fi horror movie, and it was just like there's so much about it that makes me understand that I think that's exactly what they meant to do. But
May I respond? Because I got
please do.
going into this knowing nothing about who was involved or what they were intending to do. And when I had my aha moment of this is what they're trying to be, my aha moment, the thing that I was like, oh, this is clearly what they're trying to be is not what they were trying to be, but they nailed the thing that I thought they were trying to be. And that's very similar where I went, oh, this is trying to be a made for TV lifetime thriller.
Yeah, I think either way
It
that made for
perfectly nails
TV
it.
vibe. Yeah,
Exactly. Like I
it
was like, "Oh,
feels
this is a high quality lifetime killer
well.
movie, but like on a higher scale because we're telling this story in modern times, so you got
Well,
to add a
and
lot
I
more
mean
bone in. It makes
the
sense
only reason I,
that
I
it's
went to
not
the
that.
Skinamax level is the very obvious heavy, somewhat graphic sexual content, you know, because
But I figure
man,
that's just like lifetime but spicy.
people be fucking in this movie, Michelle.
Do.
And in some very weird ways. There's a sequence in this where the weird demon creature is possessing Dr. Elizabeth Derby, and she's having sex with her husband Edward Derby, and
Yep.
she like starts cutting him, and just like, what does he just fucking discover out of nowhere that he's into knife play all of a sudden? Like he's gone his whole
Apparently.
life until now? No, there's no fucking way. That guy's been into knives since the day they were married, and she's just never known, and he's somehow never managed to tell. Can you imagine being like however many years into a marriage and then one day you discover your husband wants you to cut him while you fuck? Like that seems like some
That's what they
shit
call
you should
keeping
know
the spark
early
alive.
on. That's some shit
No.
you should know before you ever marry somebody.
Maybe he didn't know. He caught himself while making dinner the other night and he was like, "Oh."
Oh no, it's just,
And it's just a happy coincidence.
so much fucking. In fact, guys, here I should probably mention, you're gonna want to make sure you stay through to the very end of the episode today. If you
Yes,
don't
I was
normally,
hoping we'd
if
fit
you're a
in here.
regular and you don't normally listen to the out at the end because you know all that stuff, please make sure you stay. And I'll tell you why. And this is all I'm gonna say about it. Because I had seen this movie once before, and because I'm sometimes into really weird, awkward shit. I had my mom watch this movie with me. And anyway, Just listen all the way through the end of the episode. Do you have any idea how really awkward it is to be a 43-year-old man watching a sci-fi horror fuckfest with your mother? It's so
I don't, but maybe
strange.
we should suitable flesh it and swap, and I'll get to experience that myself and be like,
Oh
oh
God.
man, this does feel nice and
Like,
awkward.
like this, even like there's even the whole thing where like normally it takes a special magic spell for this thing to jump from one body to the next, but apparently also there's an alternative route, which is where you just like make him come and he's in you now.
Yeah.
It's like, what the
I
fuck?
was wondering, did they say the words the first time, or was
No,
she just
he
lost in orgasmic
ejaculated
bliss?
the demon into Heather Graham.
That's what I thought, because I was like,
Which
oh, he
also
didn't say
actually
it.
that's more accurate than I even realized, because when the demon in Heather Graham bangs her husband Edward Derby, who likes to be cut, apparently it doesn't go into him. So very literally, what happened there is that guy came the devil in Heather Graham.
Oh my god, I almost said something so explicit that I can't even say it without blushing. So
Make you feel like that Kuso movie.
no, I was just gonna say, well, I've had some orgasms that made me feel possessed. So yeah, I get that.
Oh, but please, that's
I know, but like
hilarious
the
to me,
head
Michelle.
spinning
Here's
around
what I say.
thing, like, yeah, I get
I-
that. Speaking in tongues.
I just said he came the devil into her, and you felt
Yeah.
shy about I've had good orgasms. That's so weird.
Listen,
we're so
female
different
pleasure
people.
is not allowed. We know that.
Oh.
That's partially why I like this movie. Speaking of, when it really clicked, because I figured out, like, oh, okay, I see what they're trying to do, and thank God they have that moment where he holds up the head and the head says whatever it did. I like, help me, this sucks. Like whatever the head said while spewing blood. I went, okay, you are being silly. This confirms it. Great. But getting to see Heather Graham transform into the demon inside her,
Oh,
and then
everybody
Judah
in this.
Lewis with now the doctor, I just fucking forgot her name.
Elizabeth
Heather
Derby.
Graham's, thank you, Elizabeth. So seeing Judah Lewis as Elizabeth, and then Heather Graham as Demon Man, that switch, the way that they swap characters is so nice, because up until that
Oh,
point I
yeah.
was like, Heather Graham, what the fuck are you doing? I don't like this character choice. I'm kind of bored. She's so meek and she's deliberately not acting well. And I was like, I know you're trying to like not give me a stellar performance, but I'm not enjoying it. And I think then when that swap happens to the other
Yes.
characters, I went, oh, fuck yeah, that's why. Because
hilarious,
we had to see
because-
this dynamic. It's
Yeah.
great.
I actually was watching this tonight, not just with Mom, but also on speakerphone with my good friend Kevin from DC, who joined us way back on that episode for The Seed about a year or so ago. We were checking this because we're both huge Stuart Gordon fans, and it was at that moment we started talking about Heather Graham's acting and how she just like, man, that demon gets into her and she just starts chewing scenery, and it's like, oh yeah, okay. So definitely she was trying to provide some sort of contrast before you knew that there was going to be contrast. And then once you see the contrast, it makes sense. But yeah. She's got to be Heather Graham has to be Elizabeth Derby. She has to be the demon, and then she has to also be Daniela Upton. Asa Waite has to be the demon and Asa Waite and Heather Graham. Barbara Crampton has to be Daniela Upton and Elizabeth Derby and the demon. These guys all had to switch between multiple performances, and I have nothing against their craft. Again, I want to be clear, like, this is very much a case of just that it didn't work for me. I can recognize that there's a lot of really great work going on here, right? These people were definitely committed to this, and they meant they were, there's solid performances all over this thing. Bruce Davison is great. It's and there are moments that I love when dude gets his head cut off and there's just fucking blood flying everywhere. That first real moment of splatter and violence. It's far enough into the movie that it really took me by surprise. I was like, man, are we ever going to get to anything here? And then of course, like I said, that last 20 minutes, everything from when Demon Asa falls out of the window and splatters on the concrete below, everything from there forward, that fucking sequence where she's slamming into him with the car and you're just watching it on the rearview mirror backup camera and you just watch him get fucking splattered like 3 or 4 times. Fucking brilliant. And then the tone completely shifts when it comes back to out of the flashback and we're now in the real situation. Everything from there is exactly what I was hoping this whole movie was going to be. And just the tone of that whole flashback storytelling session, I just couldn't get my head around it. It kept breaking my suspension of disbelief, and I just couldn't get completely carried away. It's not the movie's fault. It's not anybody's fault. It just wasn't for me.
Yeah, I love the ending segment. I just don't like the way that they reveal that Barbara is now Demon Man forever because it wasn't shocking at all. Like from the moment you hear that narration, it's, oh, yeah, okay, so she's the demon. But the way that they play it off, it almost makes it seem like at the very end, that's when you're supposed to know for sure. But these are great actors, and the demon guy is never pretending to be anybody else outside of just being like, yeah, man, that's what happened, just to like keep his cover. He's not trying to become these people. So they stay true to that character in that way. Like he doesn't feel compelled to figure out what her mannerisms were. So it's clearly still him. And so then I was like, well, that's not a reveal. And it felt like at the end, like that, oh no, it definitely was him. I was like, yeah, we knew that from the second the narration started. So that was kind of my only complaint of like, I wish that had been a little disguised. So at the end, it would be like, oh shit. But instead, we have kind of like this not long conversation, but a conversation that didn't really feel necessary because it's like, oh yeah, so she just took over. Yeah, we get it. We know. We you don't need to have just give us 30 seconds. I know. I get it.
Yeah.
The demon's in her now. I
Well,
get it.
here's how I would have done that is not entirely different from what they do, because then the last thing you see is Dr. Daniela Upton in the body of Dr. Elizabeth Derby in a padded cell screaming, "I'm Daniela Upton."
Mm-hmm.
I think what you do is when you I think it goes to black and then comes back up and there's Edward is going into Daniela's office or in her office talking to him. I think you don't do that. You cut to something and you do the Heather Graham scene in the padded cell first. You just show
Mm-hmm.
that to her, and then like maybe you pull the camera out and you come out through the window of the cell door, and Dr. Daniela Upton is standing there. She has a quick exchange with somebody and then just turns around and starts to walk away, and she pulls out that vape or she pulls out a cigarette, and then you just cut to
Exactly.
black and roll the credits. I think that would have played a little bit better. The only other
Yep.
thing, there's one thing that I thought was about to happen in that ending sequence that didn't happen, and I feel like it would have been so cool. Because Heather Graham, possessed by the demon, has the pistol, and she's pointing it at the security guard and Dr. Upton. And it's like she's getting ready to, or it's Demon and Dr. Upton, rather, and it's Heather Graham just herself. And she's getting ready to shoot because she wants to kill Dr. Upton with the demon in her, but the security guard won't get out of the way. And then the demon and Dr. Upton starts doing the chant spell, and it's like this race, right? And she pulls the trigger just as he finishes the spell, and I thought
Yep.
what was going to
Yep.
happen is this fucking crazy moment where Elizabeth Derby is in her own body and she fires the gun, and the instant she fires the gun,
Yep.
she transfers to the body of Daniela Upton and eats her own bullet. That would have been wild.
That's
But it didn't
exactly
quite
what I
happen
thought
that
was
way.
going to happen
It,
too, which is probably why they didn't. But God, that would have been cool.
right. I mean, you obviously you don't get to the end where you have the scene with Upton in the in Heather Graham's body in the padded cell. Yeah, but I thought that would have been kind of cool. I definitely
would have
get it.
preferred
There are a lot of things in this that are obvious homages to especially Reanimator. That whole morgue setup is all straight out of Reanimator. The African American security guard, right out of Reanimator. Things happening in the morgue, dude getting his head cut off, all of that. You know how deep the references to Reanimator are in this, Michelle? I was about halfway through the movie when they really started focusing on Dr. Daniela Upton when it dawned on me the glasses that Dr. Daniela Upton wears in this movie are the same glasses that Dr. Herbert West wears in Reanimator. They're
I
the
appreciate
same
that every
glasses.
time you call her Dr. Daniela Upton, because she has a PhD, God damn it, and you will respect her.
Well, I mean, it's somebody, she put a lot of effort into her life, man. She
Yeah,
did some shit.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Right? But yeah, I was like, it was actually like a moment, right? Like I was, because I didn't catch it the first time around, and I was sitting there watching it, and where it came from is it just hit me, man. Like she's kind of stylish, but then she's wearing these really like weird dorky nerd glass. Oh my god! And I ran to Google and I image searched it, and I was like, it's the same fucking glasses that Herbert West wears in Reanimator. I thought that was cool. I mean, I certainly appreciate that. You know, like I said, when they get to the fucking like, I just wish the whole movie had felt more like the last 20 minutes. Is really the ultimate summary of my outlook on this.
Yeah, and I just could have
Respect it, but didn't enjoy it so much.
I just would have liked some way to signal to those of us who had no idea what the concept of the movie was. And because I mean, even IMDb does not list comedy anywhere. So even if I had gone to the IMDb page, which I've glanced at multiple times, just, keeping it on my watch list of when the movie's coming out, like there's nothing in here that would indicate this is not supposed to be taken 100% seriously. And I think the big thing that they rely on to really start giving you glimpses of that is the absurd old style music, that
Oh
like the
yeah.
heavy jazz, all of
Well, and it's
that.
also
But because I don't know anything outside of that, the music just feels like a weird choice.
right, and there are other little things like that as well. Like everything in Dr. Elizabeth Derby's office, they go out of their way to show you that open window on the one wall because they also go out of their way to make it very clear that it's either just a super low budget matte painting or green screen insert behind her. This is all studio done, or at least a lot of it is. They really, and that's why I feel like, again, this is what they intended to do, and they were very successful at what they intended to do. So I can't fault the movie at all. But it just fucking wild. It was the stuff I loved. I really loved.
I was going to ask, so the first time that you saw it, obviously it's something that you were really hyped for. You're a big
Oh,
Lovecraft guy.
well,
You're a big
here's the
Reanimator
thing.
fan.
This is something that I want to mention. The reason I was expecting what I was expecting is if you go back and watch the trailer for this, the vast majority of what is in the trailer is like stuff from that last 20 minutes, and the other elements are just kind of montaged in, so it's really hard to pick up on the tone of what the most of the movie was going to be. So it just was a left field haymaker for me.
Well, then I have two things to say because, first off, since you mentioned it, the promo, the image I kept seeing from this was Heather Graham at the end when she is possessed by Demon Man. Who does he ever
Stick.
have a name? Just
Nope.
Demon Guy. Oh,
Yeah.
I was gonna say he's just like bad guy, bad evil no guy.
Right.
But it's her when she's given that smirk and she holds the gun.
Yep.
That's the promo image I kept seeing
Oh yeah.
everywhere,
Yep.
and that fucking sucks. I hate that they do that. They take one of the most pivotal moments at the end
Yeah,
because
that's a
I
big
had
part
that
of why I
so
don't try.
ingrained.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
had it so ingrained in my head. So I was like, clearly, she's not going to die. Clearly, we're nowhere near the end because whatever that image is that everybody keeps seeing
We haven't seen
on
it yet.
all the promo images, I haven't seen that exact shot yet. And so I want to have some words with whoever's in charge of marketing because it's a common thing. It's not just this movie. They take the
Yeah, that's
pivotal
why I
moment, and I
go
know
out of
they
my
want to
way
hype it
to
up,
not
but
watch
god damn it.
trailers.
I didn't watch a trailer ever.
No,
I
that's that.
never
I
saw a
believe.
trailer
Yeah,
for
that's
this.
the whole
Yeah.
thing. Is I'm saying that's why I go out of my way now, because
Yeah.
so many trailers
I
have
don't
ruined
want to
so
see it.
many movies. I don't know why
Yeah.
they do that. It's so frustrating.
I can
Uh,
understand being too close to the subject matter and therefore putting together something and being like, oh, that's not a spoiler because you were there for it and you
well,
see it and you're like, it's just a cool moment. But you need to get feedback from people who are not too close to the subject
I was
matter and
gonna
pick
say,
something
I
within the
think
first 15 minutes.
I
Tell me that.
imagine a lot of this might actually be situations where the producers are hiring out the trailer work to somebody who's not the filmmaker, like they're giving it to some sort of marketing person or whatever. And I often wonder, like, especially on low budget films like this, look, Steven Spielberg definitely approves the trailers for his movies, right? But I wonder if Joe Lynch had any say whatsoever in the production of the promo trailers for this movie, because look, this guy's a filmmaker, right? There's stuff in this that's clearly meant to be like reveals and moments, and you have to think there's no way this guy is going to want to spoil those visual moments, right? So I do wonder how much of it is just marketing people who suck. Yeah, that's right,
That's
marketers.
actually that's an incredible way to put it because yeah, their job is to get people to watch the movie. They don't
Right,
care if people like the movie.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Their
there's
job
people
is to
trying to
get you to buy a
sabotage us.
ticket. Yeah,
Dicks.
it's the
But then my
worst.
other thing that I want to say is that I know you had been super hyped for this film and then you were disappointed. Did the time that passed and now knowing what you were going to get into before watching it the second time, did you feel any difference towards it in
Yeah,
that regard, or did you feel kind of the same despite?
no, I think having been through the initial experience, and knowing now what I was coming into, those parts of it still didn't work for me, but I was able to put that aside and appreciate the parts that I did appreciate more. Look, I mean, obviously, this was still only a 2 out of 5 experience for me. But again, it just wasn't the movie for me. I think if you had asked me back in November when after I had first seen this, this might have been a 1. It might have been less than a 1. I was so just like spun by what I got versus what I was expecting. So yeah, I definitely was able to appreciate those moments a little bit more. And again, I feel like this is a movie where if it had just it's a great story. If it had just been told a little differently for my taste, I probably would have really enjoyed it a whole lot more.
Okay. I was curious because since we have been doing this podcast for a while, I like hearing things that we have talked about in the past and getting to rewatch them
For
because
sure.
this is a big one that I remember for you. One that happened recently for me was I did not like Possessor the first time I saw it because I knew very little except everybody was like, "Oh shit, this movie is so great." So I had this image in my head of like this is going to be the best experience, and then it's weird, I didn't like it, but then after giving it time and you talking about it on one of our recap episodes, I went back to watch it and really enjoyed it the second time. And then also this is probably going to be like the seventh episode in the history of our podcast where I mentioned the word skinamarink, but like you felt differently about heck
Right. Yeah.
when we covered that later. So it's just interesting to me when we get to revisit and be like, now that time has passed, how have we changed and what are the
Yeah.
factors in how our opinion has changed?
Yeah,
So I was just
I
curious.
think the first time I saw Heck, it was just a little too close in proximity to Skinamarink, and then again we had some distance. That's exactly the thing, right?
Yep.
You have
Because you're
some
like, oh, I
distance.
really like this part. And I was like, I specifically remember in the episode you saying that was a cheap gimmick that you hated. So it was just so interesting. I like hearing how thoughts change and we evolve
Sure.
as humans. I'm evolving, but
I
backwards.
yeah, that's definitely that's a big reason a lot of the time why like there's not a lot of the movies that we've watched in the course of this podcast that I'm not sure there's a single Shudder exclusive or original release we've covered that I gave 5 skulls to that I've gone back and watched a second time except Mad God. And a lot of
Oh,
it is, I got to be honest, we watch so much content now, and I'm talking about so many things that a lot of it is I'm a little worried that I'm gonna go back and watch them, and they're gonna be not as enjoyable as I remember, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to spoil my memories, right? But
well,
we'll
out
see.
of curiosity, I did pull up our website. And listener, if you want to go see any movies that we have given 5 skulls to, you can find them all at wewatchshutter.com in the 5 skull movies section. We have at the top the list of every movie that we have both given 5 skulls to. And then at the bottom, movies that only one of us gave 5 skulls to. And then you can see the difference. Several of these I have gone back and rewatched, and the ones that held up that you might be able to revisit someday. Mad God, obviously one of the greatest movies of all time.
So
Uh,
fucking great.
Tigers Are Not Afraid, When Evil Lurks, Color Out of Space. All of those we
Oh
both
yeah,
gave
so
5, and 100% I've watched multiple times and have been 5 skulls every
yeah,
time. The
Color Out of
sadness, oh,
Space.
I fucking love the
I think
sadness.
I've seen Color Out of Space 3 times.
Yeah. So there's some
Uh,
of these
yeah,
that hold
there's
up. I am also afraid to go back and watch Resurrection and Birth Rebirth cuz God, those are 5 skulls, and I also want to hold on to like the God, it's so good, and a big part of it is not knowing what's going to happen. So I'm going to lose that on the second time. It's not going to be a 5 skull, but God, it was a 5 skull the first time for both of those.
yeah.
And This Is Guar is just a great fucking documentary, and I love
Oh
Guar
god,
now,
and
so
what a
thank you for
great
that. The
story on
cuttlefish.
like
I
a
know.
crazy story on so many levels. Really super good.
Now I'm just going to mention
Oh.
every movie that we have ever watched on this podcast, starting now. Okay, we
Oh
are
no,
on
wait, stop,
episode
stop.
181, starting from the last episode.
Stop, stop. Also, by the way,
Oh,
though, as
okay.
long as Michelle's talking about the Five Skull Movies section on our website, also at the website, we have our Ghoul
Ooh,
blog
the Ghoul
where at
blog.
the beginning of January I started doing a weekly column. I don't know if they still call them that when it's on a blog, but it's called JD Watches Tubi. Tubi is a free ad-supported streaming service. They started putting out a whole bunch of original produced content a couple of years ago, and a lot of it is horror stuff. I've put out
And surprisingly good out of
some of it.
nowhere. I made so much
Guys,
fun of Tubi.
look,
I laughed at them so hard. And
yeah,
now
it
I'm
was just
losing
such
my
a
words.
silly thing. Well, the big thing about Tubi, it really blew up when I think Fox owns it, Fox Corporation. They came in and bought it from the original people, and it's become a whole thing. In fact, but anyway, check out that blog. I've got 3 reviews up there so far. The 4th one is coming up. It'll drop Monday morning. It's about
You're going to make them
the.
wait that long?
It's every Monday, Michelle. That's when the blog is scheduled. Every Monday. But
God,
it's
I don't want to wait, and I've even read it already.
Yes.
Okay.
It's my review of the most recent Addams Family film, Where the Devil Roams. You may remember the Addams Family from Hellblazer, a Shudder original from early
Wednesday,
2022.
the new
Uh,
Netflix original series,
I'm sorry, what?
Adam's Family. Wednesday. Every
Oh
time you say Adam's Family, I'm like, I know
no, what's
exactly who we're
happening?
talking about because
Yeah,
we're fans, and every single fucking time I think Morticia and Gomez.
no,
I
your
can't
your
stop it, and
joke
they've
was
heard that so
just
many times I can't help it.
your joke was just too subtle for my medically slowed mind.
No, it's
No.
just so fucking dumb that nobody else followed along for the adventure, and you know what? That's on me. Anyway, proceed.
But no, they guys, as that's a great fucking movie. You should go check that out on Tubi. But anyway, check out the Ghoul blog. We're talking about all sorts of cool things. Michelle, did you go back and actually focus and watch the movie like you said you were going to do last night?
To be fair, I did focus the first time, but my mind kept wandering, trying to piece together what the fuck
Okay,
I was
I may have
watching.
misunderstood. Yeah, I get you. I see what you're
Yeah.
saying.
No, I was focused, but like I now that I know what I was watching it a second time and not trying to figure out where it's gonna go, that's what I'm looking forward to because you said you had to take a break partway through, and I did
I had
not
to
take
take
that
a
break.
break
So
10
yeah,
minutes in just to catch my breath and reorient myself. Okay, I don't want to spoil the review. It's a real positive
yeah.
review, guys. It's going to be. Also, maybe go check out the movie before it comes out. Maybe wait till it comes out. We'll talk about it
Just
more
go
off
watch
the
it right
air.
now, and then watch it a second time so that you can have
I
some
might
some
go
time to
watch it again
process.
right now.
I'm
I was
probably gonna
anyway.
do that.
All
Oh,
right,
that does
so
mean I have to postpone watching Human Centipede 2, though, and I've been really looking forward to that.
you might be the only person in the world that I would let say I've been really looking forward to the Human Centipede 2 and not immediately write them out of my life.
I just got the full sequence or the complete sequence box
Oh,
set. It had to
I mean,
come from
I've seen
Britain.
them
I'm so
all.
excited. I
Oh
know.
my
I'm just
god.
saying I just bought them in a collector's edition box set, and I'm very
Why would you
excited.
do that to yourself, Michelle?
That's a whole story that we don't have to get into right now. I'll save it for the recap. I have thoughts about the Human Centipede, and I will subject everybody to them at the end of the month.
Fair enough, guys. Again, don't make sure you stay all the way through the end of the episode. We got some special bonus content coming your way. I don't have anything else to say. Do you have anything else to say?
Just a word of warning: do not show up to a German doctor's house because your car broke down and then get drugged and turned into a human centipede. Just if you had that on your list of to do things, cross that off. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Give me some time. Check it out.
Look, just to be safe, just don't ever leave your home ever again.
Oh, unless you move to Korea. Anyway, I think that's
say
all I
good
got
night,
to say.
Michelle.
Good night, Michelle.
For more horror content, visit WeWatchShudder.com, where you'll find our world-famous, patent-pending Ghoul blog and Squelch files, as well as a schedule of upcoming episodes. Find us on social media at WeWatchShudder on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and I guess Twitter if you're still doing that for whatever reason. You can email us. mail@WeWatchShudder.com is the address. mail@WeWatchShudder.com. You can even call and leave us a voicemail, 701-566-9510. No, really. 701-566-9510. Give it a shot. See what happens. We Watch Shudder is a production of Rat Factory Media.
So, Mom, we were just watching Suitable Flesh. What did you think of that movie?
It's stupid.
What was it? Why was it stupid?
Well, people going into other people's bodies and having sex all the time. Every time you turn around, they were having sex.
And that's stupid?
Yes, it is.
What did you think about that guy getting his head cut off?
That was gross.
What was the question you asked me when that scene got done?
How did she get out of the house with no blood on her?
That's a great question.